The screech of Karen's voice sliced through the humid summer air like a rusty blade. "That monstrosity is an eyesore," she barked, her manicured finger jabbing toward my brand new cedar fence, its rich, woody scent still clinging to the morning breeze. I stood on my porch, coffee mug warm in my hands, the bitter tang of dark roast grounding me as her words ricocheted across the cul-de-sac. She'd been at it for weeks, ever since I'd moved into this cookie-cutter suburban hellhole with its homeowners association rulebook thicker than a Bible. My crime? A 10-foot fence to keep my rescue dogs, Luna and Max, from bolting after squirrels. Karen, the self-appointed queen of Meadowbrook Estates, had made it her mission to tear it down. I took a slow sip, the steam curling under my nose, and met her glare. "It's within code, Karen. Checked it twice." My voice was calm, but inside, my blood simmered. She'd called the cops 3 times already, once for my overly loud lawnmower, once for Luna's playful barking, and now this. Each time, the officers left with a shrug, their radios crackling as they drove off. But Karen wasn't one to quit. Her eyes, sharp as broken glass, promised war. The neighborhood was a pressure cooker, and Karen was the flame. Meadowbrook wasn't just a place to live, it was her kingdom. She'd patrol the streets in her pristine white SUV, her blonde bob bouncing as she noted every infraction: too tall grass, unapproved mailboxes, kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Everyone tiptoed around her, but I wasn't built for tiptoeing. I'd grown up in a rough Philly neighborhood, where you fought for every inch of respect. This fence wasn't just about my dogs, it was my line in the sand. That afternoon, the air hung heavy with the threat of a storm. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a low growl that matched my mood as I hammered the last post into place. The fence was solid, 10 feet of cedar glory, each plank perfectly aligned. I wiped sweat from my brow, the salty sting mixing with the faint sweetness of cut wood. Then I heard it, the crunch of gravel under tires. Karen's SUV rolled up, her window sliding down with a mechanical hum. "You're ruining the aesthetic," she snapped, her voice shrill over the cicadas' drone. "I've got the homeowners association board meeting tonight, and trust me, your little fortress is done." I leaned on my hammer, the metal cool against my palm, and forced a smile. "Good luck with that, Karen." Her lips pursed, and she sped off, leaving a cloud of dust that stung my eyes. I sighed, long and heavy, the kind of sigh that carries the weight of 1,000 small battles. I wasn't just fighting her, I was fighting the whole system, rules written by people who'd never met me, enforced by a woman who thrived on control. Inside, I poured another coffee, the gurgle of the machine a small comfort. My phone buzzed, texts from neighbors, a mix of support and warnings. "Karen's rallying the board," one read. "She's got photos of your fence." I scrolled through, my thumb pausing on a message from Mrs. Alvarez, the elderly widow next door. "Come over," it said. "Got something you need to see." Mrs. Alvarez's house smelled of lavender and old books, the kind of scent that wraps you in nostalgia. She sat me down at her creaky kitchen table, her hands trembling as she slid a manila folder across. "Found this in my late husband's things," she whispered, her voice like rustling leaves. Inside were homeowners association records from a decade ago, yellowed pages, handwritten notes, and a bombshell, Karen's signature on a variance approval for her own backyard pergola, built 6 inches over the height limit. Hypocrisy in black ink. My heart raced, a drumbeat against my ribs. "She's been dodging rules herself," I said, almost to myself. Mrs. Alvarez's eyes twinkled, a spark of mischief in her weathered face. "Use it, Mijo," she said. "She's not invincible." I hugged her, the scent of her floral perfume lingering as I left, clutching the folder like a loaded gun. The homeowners association meeting was in the community center, a sterile box of a building that smelled like bleach and regret. I walked in late, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting harsh shadows on the faces of the board, 5 tired suburbanites who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Karen stood at the front, her PowerPoint glowing with photos of my fence, each slide a dagger aimed at me. "This structure violates our community's standards," she declared, her voice booming like a cheap megaphone. Murmurs rippled through the room, neighbors shifting uncomfortably in their folding chairs. I stood, the folder heavy in my hand. "Before we vote," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest, "let's talk about consistency." I held up the variance document, its edges curling like a secret begging to be told. Gasps punctuated the air as I read aloud, "Karen's pergola, approved despite breaking the same height rule she was now weaponizing against me." Her face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The room erupted, neighbors whispering, some laughing, others shaking their heads. But I wasn't done. I'd spent the day digging, thanks to Mrs. Alvarez's tip. I pulled out my phone, projecting emails I'd found through a public records request, Karen's complaints about neighbors, dozens of them, stretching back years. She'd targeted everyone, the Patels for their Diwali lights, Mr. Thompson for his vintage car, even Mrs. Alvarez for her rosebushes. The crowd's murmurs grew into a low roar, the air thick with betrayal. Karen's empire was crumbling, and I could almost hear the satisfying crack of its foundation. She tried to fight back, her voice rising to a screech. "This is a personal attack," she cried, but the board wasn't listening. Mr. Chen, the quiet accountant who rarely spoke, stood up. "Karen, you've been bullying this neighborhood for years," he said, his voice soft but cutting. "Maybe it's time we reviewed your compliance." The room went silent, the weight of his words settling like dust after a storm. The vote was swift, my fence stayed. Karen's pergola, however, was now under scrutiny, with a motion to inspect it for code violations. As the meeting adjourned, neighbors crowded around me, their voices a warm hum of gratitude and relief. I caught Karen's eye as she stormed out, her heels clicking furiously on the tile. For the first time, she looked small, her shoulders hunched under the weight of her own defeat. Outside, the storm had broken, rain pattering softly on the pavement, washing the air clean. I walked home, the cool drops kissing my skin, each one a tiny victory. Luna and Max greeted me at the door, their tails thumping against the floor, their joyful barks filling the house with life. I sank onto the couch, the folder still in my hand, and let out a long, shaky breath. The fight wasn't just about a fence, it was about standing up, about carving out a space where I could breathe free. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds, their chirps sharp and bright against the quiet. I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, and saw Mrs. Alvarez tending her roses, her smile as warm as the sunrise. Across the street, Karen's SUV was parked, silent and still, no sign of her usual patrol. Word had spread, the board was auditing all her past variances, and neighbors were filing complaints of their own. Justice wasn't loud or flashy, it was quiet, steady, like the growth of those roses. I leaned against my fence, its cedar scent now softened by the rain, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just my win, it was ours. A neighborhood that had cowered under Karen's reign was waking up, finding its voice. And as the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the cul-de-sac, I knew one thing for sure, no one, not Karen, not the homeowners association, not anyone, would ever make me feel small again.